All right, looks like everybody's ready to get started here. So good morning and welcome to the 588th board meeting of the California Regional Water Quality Control Board, Central Valley Region. I'm Mark Bradford, the chair of the Central Valley Water Board, and I'll introduce the other board members in just a minute. For people who want to listen in or watch the meeting online, the board's customary webcast is available. And we are receiving presentations and public comments here at the meeting and online through a Zoom meeting platform. If you're here at the meeting and intend to present or comment, or think you might be interested in commenting, you should have filled out a speaker comment card, the blue card available at the boardroom entrance. If you're online and planning on commenting, you should already be in the Zoom meeting room using the meeting ID and password provided by board staff. If you have not already received this information, you can email us now at agenda5@waterboards.ca.gov. That email address again is agenda followed by the number 5 with no space at waterboards.ca.gov. Include speaker comment in the subject line so we can follow up with you. For those in the Zoom meeting, you will be on mute and your camera turned off until it is your turn to speak. Our meeting host will then unmute you and ask you to turn on your camera if you have one. When you are done speaking and the board members have completed asking questions, you will be placed on mute and your camera turned off. And now I will introduce the other board members as follows. On my right here is Nick Abdus of Sacramento. On my left is Denise Cadera from Allensworth.
So you can stop share.
Lee
We'll go to a
Reeder
camera.
is next to Nick down here on my right. Sean Yang of Sacramento on my left. And new board member Nick Joslin from Mount Shasta at the end of the table there. And I'm Mark Bradford again, also from Sacramento. Nicole Morgan is our usual state board liaison, is not available to speak today. However, a copy of her liaison report is available to interested persons on the table at the boardroom entrance. I will now introduce Executive Officer Patrick Palupa, who will introduce his staff.
Good morning. New microphones take a minute to get used to.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the board meeting today. I have to my immediate right, Senior Staff Counsel Jessica Yar from the Office of Chief Counsel. To my immediate left is Adam Lapitz, Assistant Executive Officer in the Rancho Cordova office. To his left is Mindy Maxwell, the Executive Assistant to the board. Immediately in front of me, I have Kennedy Knight and a counsel with the Office of Chief Counsel, and name is escaping me for a second there. Chris Moskal. My goodness, just talking with you this morning. We're also with the Office of Chief Counsel. Immediately across from me is JJ Baum, Assistant Executive Officer in the Rancho Cordova office. In the audience is Clint Snyder, who heads our Reading office, and Kelly Garver, who is our Administrative Officer here in the Rancho Cordova office. A number of supervising staff is in the audience. I also see Mel Wadwani, Assistant Chief Counsel in the Regional Board Unit, and Yvonne West from the Office of Enforcement. With that, I'll go back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Patrick. Now I have the Pledge of Allegiance. Nick has agreed to last minute lead us through this. Thank you. Okay, board member communications. I'll start out for a change. I had participated in a chair's call on July 10th, and there was quite a bit of discussion about the budget. And I guess the bottom line is the Central Valley Board wasn't impacted very much. In fact, we're going to get a couple of new positions, but overall it was described as that we're in a famine cycle. And that there are a lot of challenges surrounding the changes to NEPA the Supreme Court decision and how that's going to impact our staffing requirements and our finances for dealing with the fallout from that on the state level. And then I think all of you know that just for your calendars, the WQCC is scheduled for October 23rd and 24th here in Sacramento. And if we have any agenda ideas for that, we should forward them to Meredith and Joaquin, or I'm sure Mindy could forward them for us. And that was it for me. So, would you like, anybody else like to update us? Any activities?
Okay, I will.
I know you will.
All right, good morning. On July 11th, I participated in the nitrate control program meeting. 17th of July, I participated in the State Water Board climate and racial equity session. And then on the 29th of July, I attended a water cluster training organized by Self-Help Enterprise Community Water Center Leadership Council. And the focus of the training was on how to communicate effectively about your water issues, like media campaign and so forth. So and that's all I have for this morning.
Any others? Oh, Elaine.
Hi, on July 11th, I also met with the environmental groups regarding our nitrate control program. We had a very fruitful discussion.
Okay, thank you. And normally this agenda item 3, normally we do the State Water Board liaison update now, but as I mentioned, Nicole is unavailable today to provide the update, so copies of the report, though, are available on the table outside the boardroom entrance. And then agenda item 4 is the public forum. If you're a person at the meeting and wish to speak but have not submitted a speaker card yet, please fill out the blue card at the table in front of the boardroom. If you're in the Zoom meeting and have not already emailed us but would like to speak during public forum, please raise your hand now. And Mindy, has anybody submitted a request to speak on any topic that's not on the agenda today?
We have 2 people. The first one is Ben King representing himself, and he is here in person today.
Thank you, Mindy. There's a button down at the bottom. Yeah.
There we go, green.
There you
Should
go.
be good. Chairman Bradford, members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to submit public comment. My name is Ben King. Grew up in Colusa, California, graduated Colusa High School, UC Davis, and actually King Hall School of Law. I've been active stakeholder in groundwater quality control issues for the development of the sub-basins around the Sutter Buttes. As part of that, I've been focused on groundwater, but today I want to bring your attention to the groundwater contamination at the Colusa National Refuge, and also there's contamination in groundwater at the Sacramento National Refuge. Part of my research, I just recently discovered a water management plan report prepared by the United States Fish and Wildlife in 2011. So I'm going to read the excerpt from that. It's a public document. So this was prepared in 2011. It's the Colusa National Refuge Water Management Plan. On page 9, section 5, it's described groundwater availability, quality, and potential for use. And it says the United States Bureau of Reclamation drilled 4 test wells on nearby Sacramento NWR in the early 1990s. Chemical analysis of this groundwater wells at the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge and the Colusa National Wildlife Refuge detected mercury levels above the EPA chronic criteria, both Sacramento NWR and Colusa NWR, and levels of the hexavalent form of chromium above the EPA chronic and acute criteria, Sacramento NWR. Due to these test results, it is believed that the use of this water could have detrimental effect on the aquatic and wildlife resources that utilize this area. In addition, limited quantity, hundreds of gallons instead of thousands, was found for the test wells at the Sacramento NWR. The groundwater basin under the refuge is considered to be of very limited usefulness. So historically, so my family's been farming around Colusa area in Colusa County since 1860. both near the Coosa Trough, historical Coosa Trough, and actually on the banks of the upper Sycamore Slough, which is between the upper basin, which is where the Coosa National Refuge is, and the southern basin, which is RD 108. We've been actually neighbors of RD 108 before RD 108 was established in 1871. My grandfather's oldest brother actually had a ranch of about 20,000 acres that stretched from King Road and Highway 20 into Wilbur Springs. That area was known as Quicksilver in 1902. So there's well-documented evidence of mercury contamination in Cache Creek. And actually there's a settlement basin actually been worked on since in the 1900s. In my submission, I attached a USGS report talking about the effects of methyl mercury contamination in the Cache Creek watershed. So immediately to the east of Cache Creek watershed in Bear Valley is the watershed for Freshwater Creek and for Cortina Creek. Freshwater actually enters the Coosa National Refuge right north of Highway 20, and there's actually been a dam that's part of what's known as the Davis Weir, which holds back between probably about 1,000 acre-feet of water. It stretches 5 miles north, where you can go down and see gunk on the water and lilies in the natural trough, which was dug in the early 1920s. So in addition to that, since I mentioned I've been a stakeholder in the GSP development, I would refer you to Appendix 5D of the Coosa Subbasin GSP, which has several readings of elevated EC levels. The highest EC level observed is on Agenda 5D22, which is Township 16 North, which is most proximate to Coosa National Refuge. That has a screen depth of about 30 feet, EC level over 6,000. And that would come to a TDS level around about 4,000. So methyl mercury is very transmissible when you have high elevated pH and when you have anaerobic conditions. The Davis Weir is made the area of the National Refuge basically a reservoir where you have high organic matter, elevated pH. It's understandable why the groundwater would be contaminated, since we have a confluence of both groundwater and the surface water at that point, and a lack of running water and a lack of oxygen in that system. And also, there's no reason why you wouldn't have the same problem in the Coosa Trough as you would for the Cache Creek's watershed. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to submit public comment.
Thank you very much. Patrick, would you like to respond to any of
Yeah,
that?
no, absolutely. And
Interesting.
thank you for the input there. And certainly I will make sure that we have forwarded that information along to our methyl mercury team. We have a fairly comprehensive total maximum daily load program in the Delta that is also looking at inputs to the Delta, including from, Cache Creek watershed, Coosa Basin drain, and other kind of inputs into that area. So certainly the literature that you forwarded, they have it, and they'll be looking at it and reviewing it. One of the tasks that we'll be doing in the year to come will be the 10-year review of the total maximum daily load program for the Delta methyl mercury, and that'll be one part of that discussion. So we'll make sure that you're included on the notices when we go out to have a discussion in front of the board about that program. But I really appreciate your interest. It's certainly something. The gold mining legacy here in California, particularly in those watersheds, that's the legacy.
So I would just say the Coast Range geology had both chromium and
Absolutely.
petroleum and mercury mining. So the complexity of the Coast Range is very. So I would really focus on just general natural contaminants in general, and how that may affect the quality of life as it relates to the Delta. And I think the Delta Independent Science Board is actually starting to focus on that.
Yeah. So I will say there's kind of two components there. Certainly and I've worked on about a dozen large cleanups in the Cache Creek watershed of significant mine sources. There are certainly the eroding mercury enriched or naturally occurring mercury is creating a problem within that watershed. And then I think the other challenge is the statistic is and it's tough to, when you're talking mercury, literally, half a kilogram is a lot. of mercury. And the estimation from, we worked a number of years ago with CalFed and Department of Conservation, and the estimate is there's about a battleship's worth of mercury in the channels from that were not even from the Coast Range, but from the mercury that was imported for hydraulic mining operations in the watershed. So everything is impacted by that. It's all over the place, and one of the big problems that I'm glad you brought it up, because it's I won't say a pet project of mine, because but it's definitely near and dear to my heart, the remediation of those sources. And I think just for the board's purposes, it's gaining increased attention in these years because a lot of tribal groups look at the methylmercury concentrations in the fish that they rely upon. Subsistence fishers in the Delta look at those methylmercury concentrations and say, look, historically, we were able to eat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meals per week, and now you're saying we can only eat 1, if that. What is the limiting factor? And very, very often the largest limiting factor, especially for higher trophic level fish, is methylmercury. So we got to figure out a way to address that. But again, really appreciate your attention to that item.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. King. That was a good item to bring up. I'm glad Patrick's all over it, so thank you. Mindy, you mentioned there's one more commenter.
Yes, we have Bill Pensar representing the Lemon Cove Sanitary District. He's on Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, you can unmute if you like.
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak this morning. My name is Bill Pensar. I live in Lemon Cove, California, which is simultaneously within the boundaries of Tulare County, the greater Cahuilla Groundwater Management Area, the Cahuilla Water Foundation, and also the home to a large subterranean water-soluble nitrate deposit. I am and have been involved with the Lemon Cove Sanitary District for quite some time. As you might imagine, I'm writing today about water, specifically about a $3,500 levy.
Just 1 minute for those in the audience who don't know. We ripped out the guts of this room and did a significant IT upgrade, but there's still a few kinks. Our team is certainly able to handle them as they go through. So we'll get Mr. Pensar on.
Is everything okay?
Yes, we hear you now.
Oh, okay. $3,500 levy that the KWF, Cahuilla Water Foundation, wishes to place on our small district for CV salts nitrates, Path B. The LCSD serves 106 people on about 22 acres. We do have a sewer pond, which is why I believe other sites with higher populations, but with septic tanks, have been exempted. A school with almost 400 people nearby pays no fee. Nearby communities pay the following fees. Exeter pays $6,000 with a population of 10,000. Woodlake, $6,000, population of 10,000. Ivanhoe, 5,000 people, $5,000, population of 5,000 people. Lemon Cove pays $3,500 for 106 people. That works out Exeter, 60 cents per person. Woodlake, likewise, 60 cents per person. Ivanhoe, $1. Lemon Cove, $33 per person. Exeter, $365 per acre. Woodlake, $465 per acre. Ivanhoe, $390 per acre, $3.90 per acre. Lemon Cove, $159 per acre. IRLP, we've been unable to find it, but we do know they pay a fee less than $5 per acre. At least we think that's what it is, because people don't really want to give us those figures, less than transparent. And out of that comes the Water Foundation fee. The per capita rate in Lemon Cove is 55 times higher than Exeter and Woodlake, 33 times higher than Ivanhoe. Acreage rates are similarly extreme, with Lemon Cove 43 times higher than Exeter's, 38 times higher than Wood Lakes, 40 times higher than Ivanhoe. Needless to say, it would appear that logic and proportion have taken a vacation. We are celebrating the 40th anniversary of being under a compliance order for having nitrate contamination, 1983. We since then have drilled 7 wells, 3 with our own money, and we're hopefully near the end of it. After searching, we've located clean water. In fact, we have 2 hard rock wells, cased, grouted, pump tested in tandem for 11 days round the clock. By all measures, we have what the state of California calls safe drinking water. The wells, however, are 2 miles down. That obligation limits our ability to spend money inefficiently. This letter is to ask for some manner of reduction so that we can continue our mandate to deliver clean water to our community. The $3,500 levy is both unusually out of scale and frustrating to our future activities to provide nitrate-free water to our customers after 40 years. Our CV salts salinity levy is $150. The KWF is less than transparent with its rate structure, list of member fees, and formulas for deciding fees. So these figures have been acquired through direct sources, which explains the brevity of the survey. At the July 5th meeting, the LCSD board members agreed with and approved this letter. $3,500 is more than 50% of our annual tax revenues, just to give you an idea of scale. We'd certainly like to sit down with somebody and do something about this. And I'm through.
All right, thanks for your comments. Patrick, would you care to respond to any of that?
Yeah, and I think it's somewhat limited in terms of how much we can respond. I think the drinking water enforcement order that was being discussed is a Division of Drinking Water enforcement order for Lemon Cove's failure to provide safe drinking water to its own residents. It's not our enforcement order. And the fee, I believe, Mr. Pensar, I think we missed your affiliation with Lemon Cove. So I'm not sure if Mr. Pensar is an interested person or representing Lemon Cove, but the issue is Lemon Cove's participation in the management zone and how it sees its path forward. But it does have an out-of-compliant facility, both on the drinking water side and on the wastewater side, and we will continue to work through those issues in collaboration with the management zone.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
I just wanted to comment to Mr. Kane and Mr. Pence. As a board, we certainly welcome the opportunity for public comments, bringing things to our attention where we cannot address the concern that you may raise at the meeting. We certainly appreciate you being a part of bringing things before the board, and it's a delight to hear public comments when they come before us. So thank you very much for your time today and expressing issues that you bring before the board.
This letter was approved by the board. I hope I made myself clear on that. It was, they've heard it, they've had it read to them, and they agreed that we can speak to you folks about it. Okay, thank you. Anybody have any suggestions how to go forward for a low-income district?
I was going to, Patrick asked why you were, apparently you were unable to respond, what your affiliation is with Lemon Cove.
I live here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I live here. I was formerly on the board, and this letter was read to the board and approved. So the board knows about it, and they agree with it.
Well, thank you very much. We'll continue to have that discussion.
Anybody have any clues how to go forward?
We will continue to have that discussion, especially since this is in the context of an enforcement order by the Division of Drinking Water. We'll continue to have that discussion away from the board itself.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, moving ahead then. If there's no further commenters, Mindy.
No, there's no more.
Okay, thank you. So agenda item 6 is consideration of the minutes from the last board meeting, which was held on June 22nd. Are there any edits or corrections to the June minutes?
I'll move approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have Nick motion to approve the minutes and Elena seconded. So Mindy, could you call the roll?
Board Member Yang.
Aye.
Board Member Kadara.
Yes.
Board Member Lee Reeder.
Aye.
Board Member Jocelyn.
Yes.
Vice Chair Abdus.
Yes.
And Chair Bradford.
Yes.
If we could pause for just 1 second. Normal practice is if you were not present at the meeting for the minutes, then you would abstain for the vote on the minutes. My apologies. So Nick, if
I'll abstain from the vote.
thanks.
And Denise pointed out that I inadvertently skipped over agenda item 5, which is the
Let's just get
executive
into it. No.
officer's report. I knew you were going to get to it.
Denise does not miss anything.
No, I was just testing her. So prior to each meeting, the executive officer works with the executive assistant and the board's program managers to compile a report on the status of the board's programs, its staffing, and many different initiatives the board is working on. If you're in person at the meeting and have not submitted a speaker card yet, please fill out the blue card at the table in front of the boardroom. At this time, the executive officer is available to take any questions on this report. Denise?
Yes, I had one comment, and this item was on page 25, and it made reference to, I think it's Poso Creek. And my question was, they have not submitted any reports.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested in knowing where we are in that stage of this process for them wanting to close down the ponds. They've not submitted a closure report and et cetera.
So, thanks for that. Yes. There we go. Apologies. Let me repeat again for those of you who didn't hear that because the microphone was off. I've confirmed that those facilities did receive a notice of violation from the board's oil field unit out of the Fresno office, and Alex's team will be following up from those notices of violation. Usually the notice of violation will say you did not submit a report, submit it as soon as you can to be considered for leniency in future enforcement actions. But so if they do not kind of comply with the directives in the notice of violation, if they do not submit that report, you may be hearing more about those facilities and possibly in an enforcement context.
That would include the closure plan as well?
If they are destined to close those ponds, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And I do have 2 Superior Accomplishment Awards to move forward with today. First is for Michael Collins in the board's Reading office. Can we confirm that? On the line, fantastic. New world with the hybrid meetings. Michael Collins is a water resource control engineer who has been working in the NPDES program since 2018, performing both permitting and compliance and enforcement duties. Michael has earned the Employee Recognition Award for his contribution to multiple aspects of our program, including his leadership in permit writing, proficiency in compliance and enforcement, mentoring of fellow staff, and for being an excellent team member. During the past quarter, Michael worked on 2 NPDES permits and successfully brought items to the final stages within the targeted deadlines. Both permits came with challenges. One permit was highly technical. It included the development of mixing zones and dilution credits for effluent limit calculations and the incorporation of new statewide toxicity provisions. The other permit action was a notice of applicability for enrollment in the limited threat general order. The issuance of the NOA required additional coordination with the applicant to ensure the time schedule remained on track and that information needs were met. Michael participated in weekly meetings with the applicant and fielded numerous questions related to the enrollment process during the past quarter. Michael did not let the applicant's tight time frame for commencement of the project comprise the integrity of the application process. He displayed firm but fair thresholds for project description and data needs, which resulted in an NOA that was thorough, complete, and meet the needs of the project scope. Michael has also been working diligently on NPDES compliance and enforcement items this past quarter. Under Michael's lead, over 100 monitoring reports were reviewed for compliance determination, and 5 notices of violation have been issued related to his caseload. Michael has also completed his scheduled fiscal year compliance and enforcement inspection targets during the past quarter. One of Michael's strengths includes independently seeking out answers to regulatory challenges. He does this by familiarizing himself with past permit adoptions, recent orders, and taking the time to read guidance documents and relevant policy. As a result of these extra efforts, Michael is both a technical and policy resource for our unit. Michael is always willing to share his knowledge and insight with staff and help someone through a process that is new to them. He maintains a great attitude, is dependable, and exemplifies the qualities that we seek in a team member. We are fortunate to have Michael at the Central Valley Water Board and within the NPDES program. Congratulations, Michael, and thank you, Stacy, for that write-up for Michael's work. Really appreciate the work. I know the board sees some of that work and sees some of that work in the NPDES permits that we approve, but again, a lot of technical work goes on behind the scenes. I think those permits, about 160 to 200 pages of technical documentation to get that thing across the line, and it's relentless. They have to be renewed every 5 years. US EPA keeps us on tough targets, and the team up in Reading is responding admirably to those challenges.
You can unmute.
Oh, thank you, Patrick.
Got a great group up there. Congratulations, Michael.
Congratulations, Michael.
Yeah, good work. I know a lot of work, a lot of data crunching goes into those permits. So appreciate all the effort.
All right. Next, we have Jeff Pyle. I don't know. Scott, confirm, is he on the phone? All right. On the phone. Jeff Pyle is a vital asset to the waste discharge requirement permitting program. His years of programmatic experience and in-depth knowledge of the Central Valley's geology allow him to take on some of the most challenging projects in the program and in the Fresno office. He is a valuable resource to other staff in the office and is often asked by staff for technical direction on projects. He consistently provides thorough reviews of technical reports assigned to him. Jeff also provides excellent customer service to those he interacts with. Even when handling contentious issues with dischargers or concerned citizens, he can always be trusted to show the utmost professionalism. There have been multiple vacancies, and Jeff has stepped up to the plate to help complete former staff's projects as well as keep up with his own projects. Some of the recent work Jeff has completed includes responding to public inquiries, becoming familiar with the new statewide winery general order and assisting dischargers with starting the application process, circulating tentative WDRs for an industrial facility that was adopted at the April board meeting, working on applications for the small domestic general order, preparing an in-depth review of a discharger's groundwater monitoring well network, and prepared a 13267 information letter to address the issues he identified at the site, and conducted an in-depth review of a proposed groundwater monitoring well network and pond liner work plan for a new slaughterhouse in Lemoore. Jeff is a great asset to the Fresno office and is well deserving of this reward. Jeff, good to see you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you guys. honored and humbled to be part of the team that, protects water quality in the Central Valley.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
You're on a fine team, and congratulations, Jeff, for your hard work.
Congratulations, Jeff.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks to both Jeff and Michael. Obviously, having competent technical staff that take pride in their work is what makes the water board work. So again, thanks for making at least my job easier. So thank you.
Well put.
I will say in terms of a lot of the work that goes behind the scenes, folks like Jeff and Michael do extensive write-ups and conversations with the management team and with the legal office to make sure that by the time they bring something to the board, it's legally defensible and technically defensible, certainly. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. I know we've got a uncontested calendar item up next, and similar work went into each and every one of those permits that's in front of you today.
Thank you, Patrick.
That's it from the EO report. If you have any other questions, let me know. Sounds good.
All right, thanks again. And Mindy, has any other interested person submitted a request to comment on this item?
No, there are none.
Okay, thank you. All right, since we already did agenda item 6, we'll skip ahead to agenda item 9. No. No, to agenda item 7, which is the uncontested calendar. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider uncontested items 10 through 13. If you are a person in the meeting and wish to comment, please fill out the blue card at the table in front of the boardroom. Mindy, has anyone submitted a request to comment on any of the uncontested items?
We have 2 people from City of Stockton, but they have both indicated that they will raise their hand if they wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. And nobody has raised their hand at this point? Apparently not. And are there any late revisions? And the answer is yes. There is a late revision to the City of Stockton item, which I think was item 11, if I remember. And here they are. So anybody want to comment on this? I mean, it was mainly specifying some measurements at specific sampling locations, and language has been corrected to reflect those changes. So there's no discussion on that item. We can close the hearing. And then if I could get a motion to approve the uncontested calendar, including the late revisions on item 11.
I'll move that and make the comment, sort of reflecting back on Patrick's comments on the staff recognition. I very much appreciate the uncontested calendar, and a lot of work goes into that. So kudos to staff for that. So with that, I'll move the uncontested consent items and with the late revisions for item 11.
Second that.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion from Nick and a second from Sean. Mindy, if you could call the roll.
Board Member Yang,
Aye.
Board Member Kadara,
Yes.
Board Member Lee Reeder,
Aye.
Board Member Jocelyn,
Yes.
Vice Chair Abdus,
Yes.
and Chair Bradford.
Yes. Okay. Agenda item 8 is kind of a sad agenda item. It's a presentation of the California State Senate resolution for Clay Rogers. And at this time, Patrick Palupa will present the resolution from the California State Senate in memorial of Clay, Assistant Executive Officer from our Fresno office.
No, thank you, Chair Bradford. It was an incredible loss of a mentor and a friend when Clay passed away. I do want to extend my gratitude. We have Nancy is on the Zoom call, Clay's widow. And I think you've heard a bit from me already about at other board meetings about how much Clay meant to me, how much his presence meant in the Fresno office about all the work that he did to support his staff and the love and the care that he had for all of his work. I'll confess that I still log in every day expecting Clay to call me first thing in the morning, as he was wont to do, or Sunday night. I think Nancy knows firsthand that Sunday was Clay's day to show up in the office, even though I tried to dissuade him from doing so. He loved his work, and he would show up every Sunday and note everything that was on the upcoming week's agenda and any other problems, minefields. And Sunday night was my time to log in to kind of figure out what's going to happen. And almost inevitably, there was a couple emails waiting in my email box from Clay saying, well, we got to talk about this and we got to talk about this one. I have a concern here. I think the right thing to do is this. It is rare that we have somebody with both the technical background and the moral compass that Clay had to guide that office. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, it goes out to Nancy, to the team that he worked with in the Fresno office, who are still struggling every day with his loss. But I do want to introduce this item by handing it over to you, Mark, for a reading of the Senate resolution into the board's record. And then we will open the floor to other associates of Clay to share a few words. We have a few people both on the line, including Dr. Carl Longley and a few others, and some people here in person that want to share some thoughts. I will say, and everybody who knows Clay knows this, he wouldn't like the big hubbub about this. I think he'd probably be the last person to say, no, don't have a memorial for me. I'm just a dirtbag geologist at heart. And that was a term he used for himself quite regularly. But Clay meant a tremendous amount to a number of people throughout the region, both folks who worked with him, worked for him, who even received his enforcement items or who worked with him on enforcement items, truly respected his judgment, his leadership. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark, and you can read the Senate resolution, and then we'll open it to the floor, and then we'll have an opportunity for board members to share some of their experiences with Clay.
Thanks, Patrick. And I guess as a prelude to the resolution, just to give a little background on Clay, he graduated from Cal State University in Fresno with a Bachelor in Arts and a Master of Science in Geology. He was employed by the Central Valley Water Board from '99 till 2003, and then since 2007 through April 2023. In addition to his experience at the Central Valley Water Board, he had 19 years of professional consulting experience and was a professional geologist and certified engineering geologist in California. As Assistant Executive Officer, Clay managed the Fresno office until his passing in April, and he leaves behind a loving family and very many friends. So with that, I will read the Senate resolution, a memorial resolution by the Honorable Shannon Grove, 12th Senatorial District, and Honorable Jim Patterson, the 8th Assembly District, memorializing Clay. Whereas it was with immense sadness and a deep sense of loss that word was received of the death of Clay Rogers, age 65, a caring and compassionate Californian whose character and deeds in life merit gratitude and respectful acknowledgement by the people of the state of California. And whereas a truly remarkable individual whose indomitable spirit, forthright and honest demeanor, and fine personal example were an inspiration to those people whose life he touched. Clay grew up on a farm in the Central Valley, attended Cal State University, Fresno, where he earned bachelor's and master's degrees in geology, and served for a time in private industry as a consultant, including working on the back of oil drilling rigs. And whereas, as Assistant Executive Officer of the Central Valley Water Board in Fresno, Clay Rogers was admired for his deep concern for protecting water quality as he ushered in the next generation of environmental compliance in the Central Valley. And whereas, always passionate about his job, Clay Rogers was highly regarded for doing what was right for the future of water in the state of California and his presence and leadership changed the entire culture of both his office and the organization throughout the entire region. Whereas a true gentleman in every sense of the word, whose love of family and commitment to the well-being of the community were evident in every manner in which he conducted his personal life. Clay Rogers was an avid volunteer at the California State Mining and Mineral Museum in Mariposa, and in his free time, he was known to disappear into the desert in search of new gems and minerals to add to his collection, possessing such a knack for prospecting for gold that his wife of more than 44 years, Nancy, called him the Gold Whisperer. And whereas limitless in his vision and capacity to excel, Clay Rogers will forever be remembered as a beacon of hope for those who have committed themselves to improving the quality of life for future generations. And he leaves to mourn his passing and celebrate his legacy, his wife, Nancy, his 3 daughters, and his 5 grandchildren. Now, therefore, it be resolved by Senator Shannon Grove and Assemblymember Jim Patterson that they join the family and friends of Clay Rogers in celebrating and revering the accomplishments and legacy of a distinguished and caring individuals who lived life to the fullest, whose generosity was extended to everyone without hesitation or expectation of reward, and whose spirit will live forever in the hearts and memories of all his loved ones. And this resolution will be presented, I assume, to the family afterwards. Okay, so Patrick, I think it's time for anybody who has some comments about Clay to share their thoughts.
Absolutely.
First, we have Dr. Carl Longley, and he's on Zoom.
Dr. Longley?
Yes, can you hear me?
We do hear you. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Good you can't see me. First of all, good morning, Nancy, Chair Bradford, and fellow board members and Executive Palupa and staff. I have to echo a couple of just words that, few words that Patrick used in describing Clay. He had an unbelievable moral compass. He was more honest than honest, and his technical knowledge was beyond approach. He was the go-to person for me on many issues, and probably where I had the most contact with Clay was when we did the white paper on the use of produced water for ag irrigation. I might point out that white paper is being used elsewhere across the United States where they have similar issues, particularly in the Southwest, but as far east as Pennsylvania. Clay was an optimistic individual, and that is evidenced by, and it's already been mentioned, but his great enthusiasm and expectation that he was going to find the mother lode. And oftentimes I'd call Clay up and he'd give me a long description of a recent trip and the magnificent gem that he brought home. It was truly a great experience knowing Clay, and his loss is irreplaceable. I thank you very much for the opportunity to talk, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Carl. And by the way, we can see you. So.
Oh, oh, I don't have a tie on, and
okay.
that's
we'll let you slide.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks a lot.
Next, we have David Corey, and he is here in person.
There we go. Chair Bradford, members of the board, David Corey, the chair of the Central Valley Saline Coalition. Appreciate the opportunity to talk on about Clay a little bit. Just wanted to sort of express all of the members of the CVSC's appreciation for Clay, working with him throughout the years, and just tell you a few of the thoughts I've had in working with him. You know, he was instrumental and a key player in the CV salts process in the early years. I mean, just no new groundwater issues, and he was really the go-to person. And when Clay spoke, you listened to him, especially about groundwater issues. One thing about Clay is that he was never shy to tell you what he thought, and you always knew where he stood. I remember, you know, that was true in private or in public settings. I remember a lot of Salinity Coalition or CV Salts meetings in which he had a position that may be contrary to the EO's position on things, but he let us know in the group setting what his position was, and was not ashamed about it at all. And you saw there was a lot of glances from the EO back to him. You know, Pamela and he had certainly a good relationship, but at times they had different opinions, and he let everybody know what they were and let it play out in terms of how that played out in the public forum. And I appreciated that about Clay, knowing what he thought and being willing to express it and debate it and work through those issues. And we came up throughout the CV salts process and other irrigated lands processes that I work with Clay, his willingness to engage and tell you what he thought, we ended up with a better product at the end because of his participation, and we'll miss him. And I appreciate the ability to work with him and know him. So thank you.
Thank you, David.
Next, we have Tess Dunham, and she is also here in person.
Thank you very much. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tess Dunham, and I'm an attorney here in Sacramento, and I've worked before the Central Valley Regional Board for many a decades. We'll just leave it there. And through those years, I really have had the opportunity to work with a number of staff. And I have to tell you, my work and interactions with Clay were always colorful. So I don't recall the first time that I worked with Clay, but I remember the many interactions along the way. And through the years, I've had the pleasure and sometimes frustration of negotiating permits, enforcement orders, administrative civil liability complaints, and many other actions with Clay. While sometimes the discussion could be tense, Clay would always leave the door open to reach a mutually acceptable solution. I won't always say agreeable, but I'll say acceptable. I also learned that Clay's grumpy exterior at times would quickly dissipate if I just let it go. We'd let him blow. All right, Clay, are we ready to talk and get down to brass tacks? And he'd always get there. But more importantly, through the years, I also had the opportunity to get to know Clay a little bit. And what I learned along the way, that he loved his family, he loved rocks, and he loved the Central Valley. And he loved the Central Valley. He wanted to protect it, both environmentally and economically. All of his decisions were based on integrity and based upon his knowledge and know-how. He was a man with great integrity and honesty and a straight talker. I didn't always like what he had to say, but I appreciated the fact that he was straightforward. I always knew where he stood, and I always knew we could find a solution. Again, he always left the door open. And his dedication to the Central Valley and his role at the regional board is just amazing. In fact, this orchid I brought today represents a couple of different things, and it represents a glimpse into Clay's dedication. In that about 18 months ago, I had a client with an emergency discharge situation. So I, knowing Clay likes to work there in the mornings, picked up the phone. Unfortunately for Clay, I had his cell phone number. I tried not to overuse it, but he had given it to me, so I did use it on an occasion. So I pick up the phone, I call him at 8 a.m. in the morning to talk about this emergency situation. Of course, it was 8 a.m. Pacific time. What I did not know, was unbeknownst to me, was Clay was in Hawaii on vacation, and it was 5 a.m. in Hawaii. But he picked up the phone anyway while on vacation and helped me and the client through a situation because it was important to the Central Valley, it was important to water quality, and it was important to him. So the orchid represents his dedication for always being there, even when he was on vacation, and for his love for Hawaii, which we all know was a big part of who he was because his family was there. So in honor of Clay, I do have an orchid I'll leave to get delivered down to his family so they understand how he touched others throughout the Central Valley through his work that he has done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tess. That was a good summary of your experiences with Clay over the years. Thank you.
Next, we have Joe Karkowski, and he's also here in person.
Good morning, Chair Bradford, members of the board. My name is Joe Karkowski. I currently work at the State Water Resources Control Board at Division of Financial Assistance. Worked at the Central Valley Regional Board for about 15 years. So I thought I'd start with part of Clay that maybe some of you didn't get to experience. So my wife, Linda Bracamani, was actually also worked at the regional board, and we were married about 6 years ago, and Clay attended. So I have a few pictures to show. So I love this one. This is sort of that pure joy and happiness. What you don't know is it's a prelude to his dancing with his wife, Nancy. So next slide, please. So, you know, I was looking at this, and there's Adam, of course, photobombing in the background, but I mean, this is just like a wonderful moment. You can see Clay is an effortless dancer. Next slide, please, because Nancy is putting all the effort forward. He's kind of leaning against the bar there. But, you know, so it wasn't typical of Clay, you know, to put himself out there in these ways, but he was just obviously loving life. And as you heard, he's just really loved his wife and family. So one other thing, he had a brief singing sort of career. Next slide, please. So as part of the AEO 5, so those are all the assistant executive officers at that time. They had their one-hit wonder covering Sweet Caroline. And probably many of you are familiar with that sort of bemused Clay look there. So many of us had that look as the AEO 5 were singing that day. So thank you. We can probably just leave that up as I go through the rest of my remarks. You know, so Clay was a great friend, work colleague. You know, his practical experience and knowledge, as you've heard, were just invaluable, I think, to shaping policy in the Central Valley. I mean, we were doing really big things, irrigated lands regulatory program, oil and gas, and having somebody with Clay's experience and knowledge was just incredible. And you know, I think the Central Valley Board is going to benefit for years to come from having had Clay in those positions when those policies were coming through. I always valued the discussions with him, and I think, you know, as you've heard from many others, learned much from him. He was very patient, you know, I think in teaching and wanting you to understand, especially geology and groundwater. And as you've heard, he is always authentic and a straight talker. So, you know, it's one of those qualities and characteristics that, you know, I certainly appreciate, and you know, even those who may not have agreed with him just really embraced, because you knew where he was coming from, right? You knew where he stood. And even, you know, when conversations would drift to non-work issues, he was great at telling stories. He would love to tell stories. And what really came through both were his passion for geology and his love of Nancy and his family. You know, Clay had a presence. As Patrick was saying, he was always someone you look forward to hearing from, you know, and seeing. And that, you know, that's just something I think we'll all miss, as well as, you know, that amazing gravelly voice of his too. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, especially thanks for sharing those pictures. Shows the other side of Clay when he's not in a meeting and having some fun. I think he showed me that dance move he's got of leaning on the bar and just kind of putting your hand out. So he mastered it though. There it is. Yeah. And Adam, I got to say, you look a little disappointed. Okay, thank you. Looks like we have Bruce.
The red button, just like that. Good morning, Bruce Hadelschelt, Northern California Water Association, Sac Valley Water Quality Coalition. Good to be in person here, and especially for this tribute. Some folks have said some very eloquent things that I will associate my comments with, but I remember Clay came to the NACWA offices one day, and some of you may know that David Guy, who heads NACWA, got his geology degree at San Diego State and his law degree at Colorado, which always seemed to me to be opposite of what they should be, right? But there are beaches in San Diego, so I think that's geology too, right? But Clay was there, and so there was a conversation, and Clay had this humility and this intellectual curiosity. And he was able to, we were having this conversation, he was able to explain some things, and David and he were going back and forth. And David said, it'd be great if you wrote a blog for NACWA. And he says, no, I just don't think I have really anything to say. Well, he had a lot to say. But it really was his humility, right? That really just kind of said, yeah, I think, probably not. And Clay, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a geologist, I just, work with the coalition and the growers. But Clay had this wonderful way of making things understandable. And David and Tess will remember this map he had, which had 1 mile squares in a township. And it was basically the way Clay would explain how risk in groundwater would occur. And it was like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. That's brilliant. So everything everyone said, but and shared about their personal experiences with Clay, but it just, he had an intellectual curiosity. He was humble, and clearly he was a rock star, both to his family and in his geological explorations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
Next, we have JP Cataviella, who's also here in person.
Thank you. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but hearing the heartfelt thoughts, I wanted to share some of mine. I think I'll start with one of the most impressive, professional accomplishments that I was able to work with Clay on closely was the development of the Central Valley Dairy Representative Monitoring Program. I've been to groundwater conferences and seen dairy monitoring programs from all over the world at this point, from Italy and other European countries. And what we built in California is by far the largest and most comprehensive groundwater monitoring program for dairies anywhere. That wasn't done by accident, and it was a major collaboration. And Clay was the leader on the water board side of that. And I want to give him credit for helping walk through and develop something that we didn't know how to do. We had to figure it out as we went along. And I think it's been a very successful program. I want to acknowledge that professional accomplishment. With that, I just want to talk about how I felt about him as a person. I was able to work with him for about 12 years here. It's funny. One of the things I really miss is the arguing. We used to argue a lot, and he was a good arguer. And I'm a pretty good arguer too, and we had some good ones. But we always, I think, stayed friendly and seeing each other's point of view at the end, and that's something I can really appreciate about a person. We had a running joke because he one time called me at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and just gave me awful news that was going to mean I had to work all weekend and call people, and it was just terrible stuff, related to enforcement, something like that. And so he got in the habit of calling me on Friday afternoons, and he'd always start after that with, I promise I'm not calling you with bad news this time, or something like that to warn you. He always remembered that. I'm really happy that the last time I saw Clay in person was in Fresno. And he had called me that morning, and I just happened to be down there. And he had a quick question for me. I answered it. But before I answered it, I said, hey, do you want to just go grab lunch? I'm getting hungry, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about there. But we had already dispensed with the question and answer. And he said, well, let's get lunch anyway. And we went and grabbed a sandwich somewhere. And we didn't talk about business at all. We just spent the last few minutes that I had with him over a sandwich, and of course talked about geology and gold digging and that sort of thing. And I'm happy that that I have that memory and was able to see him. But I really do miss him, and appreciate the person that he was as well as the professional that he was. Thanks for the opportunity to share that with you.
Thank you, JP.
That concludes the comments, and certainly the board members are free to make some comments before we close the item.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments. I don't think I can add to what we've heard today and before about Clay and the type of person that he was. I can't help but think when I hear people speak about Clay, that Clay is one of these individuals that you come across in life, and you think to yourself about your own life, how do I make my life more like Clay's life? And he's definitely one of those folks that you come across, and I've certainly gotten that from everybody's experience with Clay. So again, he will be missed. And I will say to Nancy, who I think we met once, thank you for sharing Clay with all of us. He made a difference in people's lives, and we appreciate the time we had with him.
Well, Clay was a gentle person, always spoke calmly. He always sought solutions. He was a great leader and always made himself available when called upon. He came out to Allensworth a few times. I just called him and said, we're having a community fair and we would like public information about water quality. He showed up. We had a celebration in the community for funding we had received, and we wanted to have partners participate. He showed up. In Allensworth in the summertime, it's about 107, and we had drought going on, but he showed up. You could always call Clay, and he delivered. From dairy to the oil fields, to the food safety committee, to the mines and beyond. He knew it all, and he was a tremendous asset to the Central Valley Water Board. His passing was a loss, but he was a leader to the Fresno staff and developed a very capable team who will continue the excellent work expected at the Fresno office. So our deepest sympathy to his wife, Nancy, and their children, and truly miss seeing him sitting there in that chair. Thank you.
I didn't really get a chance to work directly with Clay all that much, but interacted with him at the board meetings and at the Christmas party that we had before and after COVID. And I was always impressed he just exuded a lot of knowledge and confidence. And we commiserated a great deal about the consulting gauntlet that we had both run for many years before our activities on the board. Chasing down billable hours and finding clients and writing proposals and not getting paid and so on and so forth. And I think that grind eventually did lead to Clay joining the board originally. So we had some good stories to share about that whole process. I guess the rock hound in Clay was really evident, especially we're on a field trip with Clay, and there might be a presentation going on, and we're standing around in the sun, and Clay's examining the formation behind the speaker and looking down at the ground, and pretty soon you find him flop down under a tree with a rock in his hand, examining it, and not just determining is it round or square or something. He's looking, is it igneous or metamorphic, or how did it get here? So Clay was all about geology, and I appreciated that. My father-in-law was a geologist and probably had a rock collection to rival Clay's in his office. So, I guess the last thing I would say, a number of people mentioned that he's never was one to bite his tongue. He shared his thoughts, and there was a board agenda item, I don't know, maybe a year ago, where we as a board extended a compliance deadline for a community in the Central Valley that Clay really had no more patience to deal with. And we kind of reluctantly approved the compliance deadline extension. And Clay was very clear that he did not agree with us on that matter, but he went along once the vote was taken. And he was, like everybody has noted here, he's a gentleman, and he might disagree, but he was happy to come to some kind of a agreement. I don't know if that's the right word, Tess. So we'll miss Clay. Condolences, obviously, to Nancy and his kids and his grandkids, and the timing of all this was really unfortunate, obviously. So we'll miss him, and the Fresno office will be able to move on, really, because of the leadership and guidance that he provided over the years. So,
Chair, can I also
Sean,
add to this? Okay. Yeah, today obviously is a bitter and sweet, and the bitter part is the fact that we lost Clay Roger way too soon, but he certainly made his mark. And the sweet part is the fact that we have a resolution to him and his family and all of the folks that has provided testimonies, including mine, how great he was and the imprint that he has made as a geologist. As a board member, we are part-time and we don't come to the office and have a chance to speak to all the staff. So myself, when we go on tours and meetings, I try to have conversation and ask a lot of questions. And with that in mind, I had an extensive conversation with Clay when we were having dinner at this barbecue place in Reading. He shared a great deal of his life and background, the upbringing, and how he lived his life. And I just want to share a couple things as far as our differences and our similarity. So obviously our differences is that he was born here in the United States and I'm a foreign born. And he lives in a farm, and I live nearby the farm, but I also was a farmer growing up as well, picking up cotton with my mom and my siblings. And the similarity is that we both graduate from Fresno State, and we both are educators, and we both are men with a lot of pride with our family and love our family dearly. And those sort of values, really makes me sad, but feel very honored to know Clay, because the fact that I just know him for 3 years, but had a lot of connection with him when we sat across from each other and had that dinner and extensive conversation. So with that said, I just want to say that I thank Clay and his family for his service and volunteer throughout the years that he has served our community to make a better place for all of us. So thank you.
I have a couple of things to say. You know, our department has been under a cloud of sadness since April. And this is a testament of how much Clay's presence impacted each and every one of us. You know, one thing I've heard across all the district offices is that Clay was always fair. And every time the department takes an approach that's the way he would do it, you know, that's a reminder of him, right? And Clay was a very down-to-earth man. He always had his sights on what was truly important. And it's really a punch in the gut to remind us to kiss our loved ones before we leave the house. And, you know, and Clay was a very knowledgeable man. I mean, one conversation with him was more than you'll ever learn on a tour, you know, and, you know, every time we use that knowledge we gained from him, from a conversation or an interaction or a practice, it's, you know, that's Clay. And, you know, his legacy will continue to emanate through Patrick, Adam, folks from the Fresno office, JJ. You know, there's a piece of him in each and every one of you. And so let's move forward and let's keep up the good fight, because that's what Clay would have wanted. Yes? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who made the effort to come here today and help memorialize Clay, and for everybody's thoughts and insights onto his remarkable life, really. Yep. Okay, with that, Nancy, thank you too for listening in. I hope we gave you a little bit of a flavor for how much he was appreciated and loved here on the board. Okay, at this time, I think we will take a little break.
Nancy has raised her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I want to thank you all on behalf of my family and me for the beautiful tributes about Clay. And yes, he would have rolled his eyes about this. He always said, I'm just a dirtbag geologist, but me and my family, I just want to say thank you so much, that it really means a lot to us.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
It's been suggested maybe we take a moment of silence here. So why don't we take 10 seconds and a moment of silence to remember Clay? Okay, thanks everybody. And at this time we will take a break. Let's come back in about 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap things up with agenda item 9, which is the end of the year report. Thank you. Okay, everybody, hate to break this up, all the good conversation, but time to get back to business if we can. Okay, we're going to get started again, please. All right, so our last agenda item is the end of the year report. At this time, the executive officer will present a summary of the work accomplished by the 19 water quality programs in the region over fiscal year 2022-23. It is an information item only, and no action will be taken, although the board may ask questions and provide direction to staff. After the presentation, interested persons will be allowed 3 minutes each to address the board. And now we're ready, Patrick.
All right. Good morning still. This presentation here, the majority of it will actually be the product of pushing the program managers here at the regional board way, way out of their comfort zones. There's probably nothing more a senior engineer, supervising engineer, geologist, or other technical staff or scientist is uncomfortable with than getting a camera out and putting together a video montage of what their program does and who they are. These are, and I think Denise, thanks for the extra push to get this done. These are videos that actually do a really, really good job of describing to folks who are outside of our organization what these programs do. And so even though we don't really have a videography program, I think we are jealous of DWRs and their extensive media team. We decided to do this ourselves in 2016. And because a number of years have elapsed since then, lots of new program managers, we opted to do it again this year. All of these videos that you'll see here today will go up on the board's website. So each one of the water quality programs has a landing page, and we'll be putting these videos up to essentially be a one-click. So irrigated lands, what do they do? Swamp, what do they do for staff? And we've actually found this to be a really effective communication tool with the public, because it's tough sometimes to understand what all of our different water quality programs do. And you know, it's easier to sit back and watch a 3 to 5 minute video than it is to comb through one of our extensive permits or work plans in many, many cases. So that's what this effort is all about here. I'll click forward. And this effort is coming to you in August because we run off of a calendar year that begins July 1. So this is a bit of a wrap up that we have every August of how we're doing with all the water quality programs, kind of an end of year assessment. What did we do well? What can we improve upon? And this diagram, I know you've seen it a few times before, but it's worth kind of refreshing what we do. At the very bottom, the big blue arrow that's pointing to the left, that's the end of year assessments. That's kind of where we are right now. And then as you kind of work through this cycle, in October and December, so that's the upper left-hand quadrant, we work on water quality prioritization. That's when we bring priority projects to the board. This past year, that was the opportunity to adopt the racial equity resolution, adopt the racial equity goals. Then January through March, we work on putting those priorities into action by incorporating them into programmatic work plans for each one of our water quality programs. Those get approved by the Executive Management Group, or EMG, in March. That's the Assistant Executive Officers and myself. And then it goes through a process of, okay, we'll work on getting this work plan adopted, up and running, so that by July 1, we're going to be implementing it. So we just started a new year. This new year, we're now working on those racial equity goals for each and every one of the programs. So this is actually the wrap up from the year prior, but that's where we are in this cycle. And apologies, I'll probably show this little diagram almost each and every year just to kind of familiarize yourself with where we are in the process. And I think let me see if I can click through. A little slow here. I think this is kind of one of the biggest messages that we have, and one of the reasons that the executive team has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with all the water quality programs. We're at a stage where there's a lot of transition within management at all state organizations, all of the regional boards, and our regional board is no exception. So these are the water quality programs. Each one of these water quality programs produces an annual work plan that governs the work of the staff across all 3 offices. And highlighted here are all of the water quality programs that are experiencing some pretty big changes, either with the program manager or, in the case, if you look kind of 3 lines down, Jason is the program manager of the cannabis program. They've been whipsawing back and forth about the size of their program, about the resources within that program and state objectives. We have all the way near the bottom of the program, We have Lynn Coster with water quality certifications and Brian Smith with the stormwater program. Huge changes to those programs because of the Supreme Court decision in Sackett reducing the scope of federal oversight. In practice, we're going to be adopting the same permits, but the procedures have changed quite dramatically. And so adapting to those has been a challenge. And adding to that, you see a lot of names highlighted in gold here. We have a number of those water quality programs in transition, from Angela as the new CV Salts lead to George Lowe, who's worked with this office for many years. You might remember him from being a lead for some of the trips that we've had in the Reading office, is the new Mines program manager. And Walters, going a little further down, is the NPDS program manager, hired relatively recently from the CV Salts program. Then we have two very large retirements. The Title 27, which is the land disposal and landfill program. Rob Busby retired. His official retirement date is a few weeks out. The way it works is you burn through the used vacation time. So he retired a few weeks ago, as did Steve Meeks, who is the UST program lead. And so we're seeing a lot of transition within our water quality programs here. And add to that, you'll see the WDR program and the Confined Animal Facilities program. Both of those program leads will be shifting in their duties as part of a reorganization of the Fresno office, a reorganization driven in large part by the board's changing water quality priorities in that area. So a lot of transition within these programs, a lot of new faces, a lot of new staff at the staff level, but a lot of managerial changes as well. Adapting to that change and supporting the managers as they work to implement these work plans is absolutely top priority of the executive management group. And I think we've got a lot of just fantastic new faces. Unfortunately, I think our senior management team is really good at math. And, for those folks who, came to the board around 2000, maybe a little bit before that, you do the math and it's probably costing you more to sit in your office chair than it is to retire. That's kind of what's driving a lot of these retirements here. But I think just about every one of them has stuck around a little longer just to kind of wrap up their work and hopefully have a good transition. It is a top priority of this office to fill those vacancies. We have limitations on how we can do that based on kind of accrued vacation and things like that, but they will be filled as expeditiously as possible because the work goes on, even though that there are personnel shifts. So that's kind of the big picture. I will, before going into the videos, I just want to give a very kind of, usually give a 15,000 foot overview. I'm going to give like a 2-mile overview about, in just kind of one slide, about what we're doing well and what needs some improvement. Overall, our performance targets were generally met this past year, even though we have recently switched into a hybrid office. So there's a lot of changes with staff there, adapting to that. A lot of program leads changed. We have, I think one of the standouts there, 94% inspections in the forest activities program were hit. That's actually a tremendous victory there, because they couldn't get out there and inspect for a good chunk of the year because of how much snow there was in the forested lands of California. So they did an excellent job of getting out there when they could, getting the inspections done. Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program, still a tremendous achievement. 4,087 of 4,119 of the required drinking water monitoring well samples. That's a 99% compliance rate. Our team, primarily out of this office doing that type of work, really consistently delivers with what is one of the most complicated kind of water quality issues that we have. In the mining program, you'll probably see a little bit of it in the mine program video. Walker Mine, Denise, I think you were probably the only board member sitting on the board when we went through the whole cleanup and abatement order, hear the litany of why ARCO deserves responsibility for that. Supreme Court denied review of their last petition after we slogged it out in court for a number of years. And so ARCO is owner of the Walker Mine, and we handed over the keys to that facility, and it's their responsibility now, as it probably always should have been. But it's clearly within their responsibility, and they're performing very well in terms of taking on that responsibility. Lots of oil field pond closure reports. Kind of one of the big victories of the oil field program is taking a look at those ponds that threaten groundwater, and having some hard conversations with the operators that are in those areas about this can't happen anymore. We got to close this facility. A lot of the oil field operators have been switching to deep injection into areas of the aquifer that are not at risk of contamination, way far down, basically putting the salty water back where it came from and not discharging it to ponds at the surface where it could impact drinking water sources. So that's a major victory moving forward. Pyrethroid research plan, one of the more contentious and technically difficult programs that we endeavored to take on was a series of basin plan amendments dealing with pyrethroid pesticides. They're dangerous because they're so good, and frankly, it's a boon to water quality that those are being used in replacement of some older generations of pesticides that had more legacy effects. But there are issues about partitioning coefficients, how much of those pesticides stick with sediment and others, what should the requirements actually be, how much of those requirements should be borne by urban streams and waterways. The research plan to fill in the gaps of that knowledge was just released, I believe about a month ago, and the board will be hearing more of that, an information item and possible adoption under the TMDL program in the months to come. One of the areas that totally knocked it out of the park because it was raining a lot this year, industrial and construction stormwater inspections blew past their targets. 152% of industrial stormwater inspections, of the target industrial stormwater inspections conducted this past year. That's also due in part to new laws that require facilities who need an industrial stormwater permit. They cannot get their business license renewed if they do not show that their industrial permit is up and active at the state board. So that was actually a really kind of effective piece of legislation to make sure that those facilities got the permits that they needed, and our team was out there inspecting those permits. Construction starts were still relatively strong, and the construction stormwater team pursued a lot of inspections, and there's some significant settlements this year as well. Usually that's the prior year. That's kind of how the cycle goes. You develop your case for those folks who haven't complied, but there are some significant kind of settlements, ACL settlements in that sector as well. And last but not least, NPDES General Order was adopted, which is a major accomplishment for the NPDES program. In terms of challenges, the confined animal facilities, they didn't quite meet their target. We've got some new staff in that program area, and part of that is due to the fact that they were chasing the flooded facilities, making sure that they were reviewing kind of the maps, the inundation maps, to make sure that they were responding to the facilities that were flooding when you had the surge of water coming into the Tulare Lake Basin. In terms of water quality risk, it was relatively low, but it is something that we are working with State Board, Division of Drinking Water, and Division of Water Quality and Division of Water Rights as well, as we work to kind of make sure that that water will be protected as we move forward. Title 27, again, this is the really the landfill and composting operations. Didn't quite meet the targets in that program. Some transitions that are going to be happening, and a lot of really good work was done in that area. But we're going to work with a new program manager when we get them hired on to make sure that we're a little closer to hitting the performance targets for the next year. And again, last but not least, it's not necessarily a minus, not necessarily a plus, but adapting to the new workforce, the hybrid and operational needs of this office. We're still working through that. That's conversations happening at every single state agency, every single business throughout the state about what the standards should be for in-office appearances, what are the benefits, what are the drawbacks. I will say the state of California has fully committed to a hybrid workforce workforce. So I don't think that there's any going back there. But the question of whether 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week is the adequate time is something that is still being actively debated. And it's tough sometimes. You know, we see other agencies that have adapted much more lenient in-office requirements, and losing staff to those agencies is something that's frustrating. But I know we are committed to a certain amount of in-office time, just so that we can be responsive to the public when they do come through our doors, or when we have to go out there and inspect a facility in an emergency situation, or come and do some work at the drop of a hat. We need some in-office staff. In addition, collaboration, mentorship, things like that are aided by in-office appearances. And not to say that we can't do those same things in a totally virtual workplace, but we're kind of working through those issues at the managerial level. Where to next? You've seen this before, continued implementation of CV salts, including the nitrate control program through the WDR program, irrigated lands, confined animals, and non-15. Continued improvements in workplace efficiency, hybrid workforce, managerial and staff development with all of those new program managers is a high priority for us. And last but not least, implementation of the racial equity goals. And those include the racial equity goals that are part of our resolution that we work for in the water quality programs, as well as diversifying the staff and continue to make sure that we have diverse recruitment pools and diverse recruitment efforts. And even though that's driven partially by, or mostly by State Board, we're working with them, the Division of Administrative Services, to make sure that we have the tools at the manager's disposal to reach out and recruit diverse candidates to our offices. And with that, I will have some questions really quick before we launch into the videos.
I'll just come in. I'm looking at the list, and the accomplishments are tremendous during the times that we've been, experiencing, from the pandemic to all of the other issues that come before us. It's a tremendous accomplishment. The challenges, we expect those, and as you indicated, we're going to press forward to make sure that we address them. So kudos to the staff and the executive team for the tremendous work that you guys continue to do.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I know one of the things that we've been, taking our cues from the board and letting staff and letting managers be as creative as possible to meet those targets, and work with staff to make sure that we're still hitting the metrics. And the world is changing, and of course we're hearing that COVID's back. There's a new generation, new iteration. So we're going to continue to try and make sure that we have the safest workplace possible while still hitting all of the performance objectives that we set for ourselves.
Can I, a quick question on the stormwater program and the water quality certification program in this post-SACIT world? In terms of available resources, obviously our jurisdiction was greatly enlarged. Can you guys give us a picture of what that looks like for the regulated community in terms of timing of permits and capacity? And
I think it's something that we're still puzzling out. I know, the State Board, like the messaging coming from higher levels at State Board, is we got it handled. But I will say, kind of for your viewpoint, we did see a significant dip in the amount of water quality certifications in the first quarter of this year, post-SACIT. I think it was about a 25% dip. Now, part of that is due to, just cyclical components. The increase in interest rates obviously has an impact on new construction starts, but that doesn't quite explain all of it. So we do think that there is likely a not insignificant number of starts that are probably proceeding where they should have permits, they should have waste discharge requirements, but there's not the same tools that we have at our disposal right now that we previously had. So we're working with the Office of Enforcement, working with, kind of legislative folks to kind of say, how do we patch that hole? How do we get that fixed? And again, I don't think it's having any significant impacts on water quality as of yet, but I do think that's something that we're definitely keeping our eye on. In terms of kind of processes and procedures, I imagine that you'll see, we'll probably be hearing a little bit more about it during the WQCC meeting about legislative proposals to kind of streamline some of the processes that were disrupted via the Sackett decision. So we still have all the water quality protection tools that we need. They're just sometimes a little slower now that we have to operate in a different realm. And for those of you who weren't privy to those discussions, the big change is when you have a state-only set of waste discharge requirements that has to come before this board. And we've had a few of those over the past year for a variety of reasons. And we anticipate more of those kind of coming through the pipeline. Now, that is a much more difficult process to navigate than it is a traditional 401 water quality certification under the federal program. Under the federal program, we still issue water quality certification. It's got all the same requirements as the waste discharge requirements would have in it. But it can be done under my signature. So the vast majority of the water quality certifications go out under my signature under a relatively kind of truncated process. Still affords time for public to review the documents, and we still kind of get the notices out, still have engagement. But it skips the step of teeing something up for the board's consideration. So that process has changed a little bit. And, it's still a little too early to tell what the impacts are going to be on the board's workload. But I think as we continue to assess that, probably about 3 months, 4 months, 5 months out from now, we'll have a much better picture of what, whether it's creating a backlog or not. So that's
I'll look forward to
long-winded
talking about it at the QCC meeting.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
I think a legislative fix it certainly is in order, given the process, because it does tend to elongate the time
Yeah.
period. And, obviously competing goals were, on the one hand, protecting water quality, which you're doing under the 401 certification process, but also the governor's priorities on delivering housing units, obviously, and most new development requires potentially a permit from the water board. So, any delays in that will impede the ability to deliver units in a timely fashion. So any legislative fix is, I think.
And I think that's certainly a big one. I would add to that conversation that a lot of flood control structures may not be a federal jurisdictional flood control structure. So the last thing I want this agency to be seen as is we get another rainfall year like we just had. My comment was to some staff, I got to go down there and see Tulare Lake. It's never going to happen again. It's like, well, it's either never going to happen again or it's going to happen next year. We really have no idea about what the ramifications of global climate change will have on the hydrologic systems inside of California, except that they will be more variable than they have been in years past. And the last thing I would like to see as well, we were going to repair that flood control structure, but we didn't do it because we needed a waste discharge requirements, and there's a 18-month lag time to get that teed up in front of the board, whereas we could have done it under the other permitting scheme. I think there are some movements, and you may have seen a recent executive order that streamlines some of those flood control structures, but I imagine that there are still flood control structures that aren't necessarily covered by that. And if there is a jurisdictional determination one way or the other that's not federal, again, I would hate to be the permitting agency that held up that necessary flood control project. Again, we'll continue to prioritize and make sure that doesn't happen, but it's something that I know Lynn Koster, the program manager of that program, is thinking about nonstop.
Well, that's very concerning on the flood control structures.
Absolutely.
More discussions to come, certainly, but yeah.
That's where a lot of them come from. If you see a lot of the 401 permitting load, it's construction starts in a lot of areas. It's maintenance of existing, build a new bridge over a water body, and you need your 401 permit. But you also, if you're going to overhaul an intake structure, very often you're getting your stream bed alteration agreement from Fish and Wildlife, and you're also getting your 401 water quality certification from the board. And if there's a determination that intake structure, that flood control structure is non-federally jurisdictional, all of a sudden, we've got a different process that we got to work It's being thought of. I will
Well,
say.
certainly it has.
I will say State Board is absolutely responding to that. They know they've got the tools to protect water quality, but they're constantly thinking about ways to make sure that that's streamlined, and certainly in lots of conversations with leadership at State Board to make sure that that we're not the ones left holding the bag. And
Right.
There won't be a draft permit waiting for you while the floods are coming.
Well, look forward to those continuing discussions then. Thanks, Patrick.
Patrick?
Yes.
Thank you so far. There's a lot of important programs on that end of the year report thus far. I just want to see if you could share with us regarding the racial equity resolution that has been adopted by the state and our region. What type of progress have we made, and what do you think we need to do more to outreach to the folks, especially the disadvantaged community, to take advantage of it? Can you share with us, please?
All
Thank
of
you.
the racial equity goals, we've had conversations with the program managers, and the racial equity goals that you adopted in December are now part of the 23-24 work plans. And so we'll be working on them and having regular updates to the executive management group. And then the assessment in the end of year report, we'll be talking with you this time next year about how we did on meeting those objectives.
Thank you. Looking forward to hearing more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I guess I'd just like to commend you guys on managing all the change that's going on in the program management level. And Clay's replacement, I know this has been a big time sink, and there's always a revolving door in any big organization, but it seems like you guys are in the middle of it at that level, which is really a challenge. So
I commiserate with all the other executive officers, but frankly, as I'm sure you have seen, it's something happening throughout both private and public workspaces. We see more transition, more people willing to try on a different hat, at different parts of time in their career. So a lot more shifts within the organization. The jobs are out there, right? We have unemployment still at unbelievably low numbers, and so folks who want to try something different out, they do try something different out. But I think internally, really trying to place an emphasis on mentorship, place an emphasis on retaining the talented staff that we have. I talk with every single one of the staff people that get hired on, regardless of which office, and say, and my leadership team obviously knows this, but everyone from a new scientific aide to a new senior engineer that gets hired onto this board, they hear the message directly from me that we do have an open door policy. If you've got questions, concerns about your career trajectory, about how you want to advance within this organization, about opportunities that are out there, we are here for you to help you develop your career. And I think it's the statement I've said virtually everybody. I'm grateful that we have a big enough organization that people can try on different things. You can jump from a permitting to an enforcement to a planning over the course of your career here. But we're small enough that we can have that individual attention from the executive team in your development and in your workplace. I know it came up in the meetings just yesterday that we have with our executive team. I think one of the things that I know Clint is most proud of in his office is that he has an extraordinary number of his team that have advanced from a scientific aide into a full-time position at his organization, whether it's a geologist, they get their geology degree, whether it's kind of moving into a full scientist position. I think that's a really strong credit to the development that we have within our organization and our leadership's ability to mentor people and say, this is, if you want to work here, if you want to kind of increase your pay, increase your responsibility, here's the roadmap for doing it, and we'll be with you. And I think the fact that they come back and take those positions is a testament to to that work that we put in.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of the staff appreciate that the mission of water quality in the Central Valley is such an important aspect of their career that hopefully they won't move on to a job in some lesser agency in the state.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Patrick.
All right. And I didn't bring popcorn for you, but we can launch right into the videos at this point.
Hello, my name is Kelly Garver. I'm the Administrative Officer and Administrative Support Program Manager for the Central Valley Water Board. Thank you for taking a few minutes to learn a little bit more about the Administrative Support Program. Our administrative program staff play a key role in our infrastructure, not only in the day-to-day operations, but also working within the regulatory programs to ensure that our staffing resources are used efficiently. Over the next couple minutes, I'll go over the specifics of our program. The Central Valley Water Board employs approximately 250 permanent employees and 40 temporary or part-time employees. Of those staff, less than 6% serve as our administrative section team. The Administrative Support Program provides administrative support for the management of 19 technical and regulatory programs across 3 offices. The Administrative Support Program serves to support the region's mission, initiatives, and priorities by providing constant, reliable assistance to our customers, both internally and externally, while applying the highest standards and ethics. Our program will continue to coordinate with State Water Board on the development and implementation of the State Water Board's Racial Equity Work Plan, as well as the Central Valley Water Board's Racial Equity Resolution. The Administrative Support Program is responsible for a wide range of tasks, including but not limited to financial operations, staff development, and front office support. More specifically, we provide contract and grant development and management, laboratory support, assisting with lab testing services and acquiring lab supplies, general building operations, including record keeping, using record retention schedules established in conjunction with State Board and CalRIM, procurement support to facilitate the acquisition of necessary goods and services, health and safety support services, and human resources management, including recruitment, training, and fostering a positive work environment. Our team also oversees mail distribution, all mail coming in and all mail going out. Administrative staff are also responsible for overseeing and managing the daily operation of the region's fleet. In total, we oversee 28 fleet vehicles, including electric vehicles and on-site electric vehicle chargers, 2 boats, and 5 ATVs. Our administrative team in each office also supports the California Integrated Water Quality System, also known as CWIX, which is one of the Water Board's primary systems for tracking regulatory data. All documents submitted for publishing to the regional board's internet must be accessible to people with disabilities. Our admin team helps staff learn how to create new accessible documents and remediate existing documents to be accessible. Our training liaisons serve as the point of contact for all training needs and information between employees and the Water Board's Training Services Office. Our team also provides assistance and answers questions about making travel arrangements and reservations, setting up new CalAiders and Concord travel accounts, and assists staff when they seek reimbursement upon returning from travel. Our admin program also oversees facility management, which involves overseeing and maintaining the physical assets and resources of our buildings and facilities. It encompasses a wide range of tasks such as maintenance, repairs, security, cleaning, space planning, and energy management. Our administrative support team plays a crucial role in assisting during board meetings, ensuring the smooth execution of proceedings and enhancing overall efficiency. Thank you for taking time to learn a little more about the Central Valley Water Board's Administrative Support Program. If you have questions or are interested in additional information about this program, please contact or email info5@waterboards.ca.gov. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dale Harvey with the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board.
I'm a supervising engineer out of the Fresno office, and I'm also the board's Confined Animal Facilities Program Manager. Over the next few minutes, I will provide a brief overview of the program. Confined animal facilities are those where livestock are confined and provided feed for a significant part of the year. This is opposed to grazing, where livestock are spread out more and rely on forage that grows in pastures or naturally occurring grassland areas. There are about 1,600 confined animal facilities in the Central Valley. Most of these, about 70%, are dairies. The dairies range in size from less than 100 animals to over 19,000 animals. Dairies in the northern part of the region tend to be smaller, averaging about 1,500 animals each, and dairies in the southern part are larger, averaging about 3,300 animals each. There's been a continuing trend over the last decade or so of smaller dairies closing and consolidating. Therefore, while the number of dairies in the region has decreased, those that remain have become larger. There are also about 260 feedlots in the region that are used to raise cattle for beef and dairy support stock such as calves and heifers. A handful of feedlots raise other types of livestock like goats and sheep. The Central Valley also has about 250 poultry facilities that raise mostly chickens and turkeys, but there are also some that raise game birds such as ducks, pheasants, and quail. Discharges of waste from the confined animal facilities are regulated under one of 4 general waste discharge requirements orders, or general orders, adopted by the board. The general order that regulates the most facility is the board's General Order for Existing Milk Cow Dairies, which regulates about 1,050 of the confined animal facilities. This order and the other general orders require facilities to be designed with positive drainage to prevent ponding of waste. Facilities must also have proper waste storage facilities to prevent off-site discharges, and new manure ponds must be lined. Manure applied to crops must be applied at agronomic rates. The Confined Animal Facilities Program has about 14 person-years of staff resources to implement the program. These are equally distributed between the Rancho Cordova and Fresno offices. The primary goal of the program is to ensure that confined animal facilities are properly regulated to protect water quality. This includes placing facilities under the appropriate general orders and conducting appropriate activities to ensure compliance with those orders, such as inspections, monitoring report reviews, and initiating enforcement actions when necessary. One of the goals related to inspections is to visit a dairy every 5 years if it is covered by the California Dairy Quality Assurance Program, and once every 3 years if it is not covered by this program. One of the things inspectors look for is compliance with the general order prohibitions on the improper disposal of mortalities. Dead livestock need to be transported to a rendering plant or a permanent disposal facility, not buried on site. Another thing evaluated during inspections is the facility's nutrient management plan and its implementation. The objective of nutrient management planning is to ensure that the crop uptake of nutrients, particularly nitrogen applied with manure waste, is maximized, and that the nitrogen that leaches beyond the root zone and gets to groundwater is minimized. Another program goal is to ensure that all confined animal facilities are participating in the Central Valley's CV salts programs. Facilities not in compliance with the nitrate control program have received priority attention from enforcement staff. Dairy digesters are also playing a larger role in the program these days. Digesters typically consist of double-lined manure ponds that are fitted with engineered covers. They convert manure into biogas, including methane, which is captured and then used for energy production or vehicle fuel. The California Department of Food and Agriculture's Dairy Digester Research and Development Program provides financial assistance for the installation of dairy digesters in California. Central Valley Water Board staff review the digester designs to ensure they are protective of water quality. The program's goal in this regard is to review all designs in a timely manner. In the coming years, we will be revising some of the general orders consistent with existing policies. In revising the orders, confined animal facility program staff will strive to promote meaningful engagement with potentially impacted communities. General orders drafted by the program will also include findings that consider impacts related to potential environmental justice concerns, tribal issues, and racial equity considerations.
Hi, Dale Harvey again. I hope this program overview has provided you some interesting information, and I thank you for your time.
Welcome to the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board's video presentation on the Cannabis Regulation and Enforcement Program. In the next few minutes, we will delve into this critical program, discussing typical discharges and violations observed at cannabis sites, the Cannabis General Order, the Cannabis Policy, California Water Code, and the progressive enforcement measures in place to ensure compliance. The Central Valley Water Board Cannabis Program was established in 2014 to mitigate the impact to water quality from cannabis-related activities. The Cannabis Program closely coordinates with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, scientists and wardens, local law enforcement, county code enforcement, the Division of Water Rights, and the Office of Enforcement to protect water quality, enforce on illegal cannabis cultivation grows, and ensure implementation of best management practices on cannabis sites. As we explore the Cannabis Regulation and Enforcement Program, it's important to acknowledge the potential environmental impacts associated with cannabis cultivation. The Central Valley Regional Board recognizes these concerns and has developed this program to protect our water resources while promoting responsible practices. Typical discharges and violations observed at cannabis sites encompass a wide range of environmental risks. These include disturbed earth, erosion and sediment discharges, plugged or undersized culverts, soil stockpiles, the use of unregistered or restricted herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers, fuel mismanagement, improperly designed roads and stream crossings, illegal diversion of surface water, field latrines with human waste deposited directly on the ground, and the accumulation of trash and debris. Addressing these issues is crucial to preserving our water quality and protecting our ecosystems. To address these challenges, the State Water Resources Control Board established the Cannabis General Waste Discharge Requirements, otherwise known as the Cannabis General Order. These requirements provide specific guidelines for cannabis cultivators to follow, ensuring responsible cultivation practices and minimizing the potential for water pollution. There are currently more than 1,200 cultivation sites enrolled in the Cannabis General Order in the Central Valley. Staff routinely perform enrollment enforcement efforts in permissive counties by identifying active cultivation sites that have not obtained regulatory coverage under the Cannabis General Order. Staff conduct desktop reviews of current satellite imagery and participate in helicopter reconnaissance missions to verify the cultivation status, then issue notices to enroll to cultivators. Active cultivators who do not enroll in the General Order are issued Water Code Section 13260 orders to obtain regulatory coverage. Cultivators who refuse to enroll in the program are referred to law enforcement for potential warrant inspections. The Cannabis General Order is a comprehensive regulatory framework designed to address the potential environmental impacts of cannabis cultivation on water resources throughout California. This order consists of several key elements aimed at protecting water quality and ensuring sustainable cultivation practices. First, the order requires all cannabis cultivators to obtain a water quality permit, which ensures that cultivators are aware of their responsibilities and adhere to specific requirements to minimize the potential for water pollution. Second, the order establishes the Cannabis Cultivation Waste Discharge Regulatory Program. This program sets guidelines and standards for managing cultivation-related waste, such as irrigation runoff, sediment, fertilizers, and pesticides. It promotes responsible waste management practices to prevent contamination of surface and groundwater. Third, the order emphasizes the importance of best management practices, or BMPs. These practices encompass a range of measures that cultivators must implement to protect water quality, such as proper irrigation management, erosion control, restricted use and proper storage of chemicals, and appropriate disposal of waste materials. BMPs play a crucial role in minimizing the environmental footprint of cannabis cultivation. The order also emphasizes the need for compliance monitoring and reporting. Cannabis cultivators are required to submit regular reports on their cultivation activities, including water usage, waste management, and other relevant information pertaining to their cultivation activities. This allows regulatory agencies to assess compliance and identify areas for improvement. In certain cases, cannabis cultivators may qualify for a waiver of waste discharge requirements. This waiver allows cultivators to forego waste discharge requirements if they meet specific criteria. However, even with a waiver, cultivators remain responsible for complying with other applicable regulations and implementing best management practices. The Central Valley Water Board uses progressive enforcement measures to ensure compliance with regulations. These measures include warrant inspections conducted in partnership with law enforcement agencies, issuing notices of violation, cleanup and abatement orders, and administrative civil liability orders or fines. Warrant inspections, carried out with the assistance of law enforcement agencies, allow the board to conduct thorough investigations into potential violations at unpermitted illegal cultivation sites. Notices of violation may be issued to address specific instances of noncompliance, prompting cultivators to rectify the problems promptly. Very often, staff are able to cooperatively work with the dischargers post-inspection so that they voluntarily clean up their sites and return them to pre-cultivation conditions. If dischargers are unwilling to comply with cleanup requirements, Water Board staff work through the progressive enforcement process, issuing staff enforcement letters and orders to submit technical documents. In more severe cases, cleanup and abatement orders are issued by the Regional Board requiring immediate action to mitigate pollution and restore impacted areas. Administrative civil liability or fines may be imposed as a last resort for persistent or significant violations, potentially resulting in substantial fines of thousands of dollars per day per violation. It is essential to note that outdoor cultivation of cannabis is only legal in a handful of counties in the Central Valley, and legal cultivation typically requires a county use permit along with all other relevant agreements and licenses from agencies such as the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Division of Water Rights, and the Department of Cannabis Control. Compliance with all these requirements ensures that cannabis cultivation is carried out responsibly, protecting our water resources and promoting sustainable practices. The Central Valley Water Board is dedicated to proactive outreach efforts aimed at educating and engaging the cannabis community in the region. By conducting outreach efforts, staff aim to empower cultivators with the knowledge and support they need to comply with regulations, implement best management practices, and protect their valuable water resources. Upon request, Water Board staff may provide translation services for outreach material. Thank you for joining us for this presentation on the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board's Cannabis Regulation and Enforcement Program. We encourage you to contact our staff for additional information.
Hello, my name is Chris Flower, and I manage the Central Valley Water Board Site Cleanup Program. I'm going to provide a summary of the program's objectives and core activities and introduce the Site Cleanup Program team. I'll also discuss the laws and regulations that staff use to manage their projects. In addition, I'll present the program's priorities and close with recent challenges and accomplishments. The Site Cleanup Program regulates the cleanup of contaminated groundwater, surface water, soil, and soil gas. Cases that site cleanup staff manage are contaminated from various commercial and industrial uses and include chemicals such as chlorinated solvents, petroleum hydrocarbons, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, and more. Program staff regulate cleanup cases in the private sector and in the federal sector, including Department of Defense sites. The Central Valley Site Cleanup Program works on over 1,000 private sector sites and over 275 federal sites. Program staff track site progress to ensure steps are being taken to reduce the risk presented to receptors. This progress tracking includes meeting with dischargers, environmental consultants, and conducting routine site visits. Cleanup staff review technical correspondences, including reports and work plans, and prepare technical correspondences of their own. Staff also take steps to ensure the public and our stakeholders are involved in the cleanup process. Staff collaborate with other programs in the Central Valley Water Board and work alongside county health departments, the Department of Toxic Substances Control, the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, and the Environmental Protection Agency. The site cleanup program utilizes approximately 29 PYs distributed across technical, administrative, and executive staff in all 3 of the region's offices. The program reports through our executive sponsor, Assistant Executive Officer, JJ Baum. The program has 5 technical staff in our Reading office, 6 technical staff in our Fresno office, and 27 technical staff in our Rancho Cordova office. Some of these staff provide support to other programs in their daily workload. The site cleanup program utilizes several laws, regulations, and resolutions to regulate the cleanup of contaminated sites. Staff apply the California Water Code, including sections 13304 and 13267, to require dischargers clean up and abate waste, or to require dischargers to submit monitoring reports. Staff also lean on the Water Quality Control Plan for the Sacramento River and San Joaquin River basins. Staff also use several state water board resolutions, including Resolution 9249 and Resolution 6816. For federal cleanup sites and for Superfund sites, staff follow the circular process. In 2022, the Central Valley Water Board passed Resolution R5 2022-0067 that affirmed the Central Valley Water Board's commitment to the State Water Board's Racial Equity Resolution 2021-0050 and to establish water quality goals in support of racial equity. This resolution included 2 goals for the site cleanup program. The first was to ensure staff are trained on the various tools available to them and to track progress relative to overburdened communities. And the second goal is to develop revised outreach guidelines that incorporate equitable, culturally relevant community outreach to promote meaningful civil engagement. Staff have developed training guides for existing staff and for onboarded staff to address the first goal, and are continuing to work with the State Water Board's Communications Office to achieve the second goal. While the site cleanup program has over 1,275 sites in its portfolio, a handful of sites have been selected as priority cases due to the unique risk they present to receptors or due to the extent of contamination. Included in these priority cases are the Union Pacific Dunsmuir case, where historical petroleum hydrocarbon releases have resulted in discharges to the Sacramento River. The Solano Street PCE case, where industrial chlorinated solvent use has led to significant PCE contamination in soil gas. The Sacramento Rail Yards project, one of the largest brownfield projects in the U.S. The McClellan Air Force Base, an air base being transferred to beneficially used private property. The Aerojet Corporation site, where manufacturing and testing of rocket propellant has resulted in a contaminant footprint in excess of 20 square miles. And the Bakersfield Refinery, where vapor extraction has removed over 1 million pounds of petroleum hydrocarbons. Like any regulatory program, the site cleanup program has its challenges, the greatest of which is funding. There are more cleanup cases and cleanup needs than dischargers have resources to address. While funding programs are available, they are not sufficient for all the cleanup needs of the state. Program staff have and will continue to encourage dischargers to apply for funding through the State Water Board and the Department of Toxic Substances Control. Staff also grapple with emerging chemicals of concern, including PFAS and 1,2,3-TCP. While an MCL for PFAS may be promulgated in the near future, the extent of PFAS impact and cleanup technologies are still being explored. 1,2,3-TCP presents an ongoing challenge due to the extent of impact from regional agricultural use, as well as the presence of point and non-point source discharges. Staff will continue to stay informed on the development of regulatory approaches to address these contaminants. While the program faced challenges during the 22-23 fiscal year, the staff had numerous successes as well. In the fiscal year, staff closed 35 site cleanup cases, moved 21 cleanup cases from an investigation phase to the remediation phase, moved 15 cases from the stalled or backlogged list by concluding that the site could be closed or by engaging a discharger to resume site action, reviewed over 500 technical documents, and responded to over 2,000 Office of Emergency Service reports. For your interest in the Central Valley Water Board's site cleanup program, you can visit our cleanup program page using the web address below for more information. And again, thank you.
Right. So think you're getting the flavor for this. I know we didn't order lunch for you today. So my suggestion would be we will certainly provide all of these to you when they come up on the website. And if you would like to kind of view another one or two or three of these, we can certainly play them. If there's any kind of requests out there, we can play those. And then we do have a closed session item that we need to discuss as well. But I did the time, and there's about an hour left of these, so don't want to starve my board. But if there's any requests for particular water quality programs, we've got a few out there.
Yeah, I'd like to say I found those very informative. If the rest of them are in similar nature, I think that's very helpful. Even as a board member that's been on, I don't know, 3 years now, I think this is very, very helpful. And for the folks that are newer, it definitely provides some framing out of the different programs and how they should be viewed. So I'm fine with just being forwarded the links to the rest of the programs and going on to closed session. I don't know what other people's opinions are, but
Well, I do want to get the CV salts in one, because that's the one we saved for last, because that has a very high, everybody's blaming Adam for this, but Adam and Perry Klassen got together and had some professional work done, because there's a lot of outreach that needs to be done on that.
Adam, a repeat offender.
I'm agreeable with that for sure. And it is really helpful to put some pictures to all the words that we hear at these meetings. I mean, just the scale of some of those cannabis grows is hard. I didn't understand how big some of them really are, or were, if they were taken down. And I really have to congratulate whoever put that slide together with the dead cow. I mean, that was top drawer for sure.
Yeah, I find it very beneficial as well with videos. As the old saying, a picture describes 1,000 words. So I'm a true believer of that. I would recommend that, if possible, every board meeting, we have some sort of video and similar to this format. Maybe not, an hour or two, but, I think it's very informative, and it speaks a lot of volume of what kind of programs out there and what kind of concern we have. So thank you for the videos, and I look forward to check out more links of these videos. So I do agree to Nick and Mark.
It probably won't be every board meeting, because there's this, you're talking about thousands and thousands of hours that went into all of these, all told. But we'll try and get these updated on a relatively regular basis. Every few years, or when there's a major shift in the program, we will get these updated and posted online.
Yeah, whatever that you guys could do, but what my point is that it's a good thing for us to play this sort of things in this format, in terms of for the public and for the board to see it. I think it's tremendously great, and not necessarily gather multiple videos, but we could kind of play one by one or three in each board meeting, see whatever that we already have recorded. But to me, the goal is to be transparent in the public board meeting. Thank you.
But this is also something we can have on our website, our homepage as well, for people.
They will be there, front and center. If you go to the Irrigated Lands program, you'll see Sue in her video. And likewise, go to Oil Field and you'll see Alex on his. And I do think it also, to a certain level, it associates, the program with a phase two. We're not necessarily a faceless bureaucracy. There's actual program managers and people working on that. And so you see staff featured in a lot of those videos, like the confined animals program. You got to see Dale in his lobster shirt, and as well as the other staff that are working in that program. So it's more than just letters going back and forth. There's actual people who are reviewing those reports and doing those inspections.
Yeah, very helpful to see the people. I mean, yeah, we often, we only come to these meetings every couple of months. We certainly don't get to see that many of the program managers and staff. So very helpful. Thanks.
I'll cue up the oil field one, Gene, because Perry Clausen, who worked on this one, says he needs about 5 more minutes to pull off the highway so he can check in on this one. I don't know. Is it Bruce? Was that a request for the irrigated lands one?
Hi, I'm Carrie Holmes, and I'm
Oh, Gene, if you could, the oil field program. Sorry, and really a lot of credit to Gene, who's been, in addition to orchestrating all our microphones and things like that, is also a video DJ for the afternoon. So thank you so much, Gene and Bob.
Hello, my name is Alex Olson, and I am the Oil Fields Program Manager for the Central Valley Water Board. In this video, I will provide you with a brief overview of the oil field program. Most California oil production occurs in the Central Valley. Formation water produced with oil, also known as produced wastewater or produced water, is the primary waste product generated during oil production activities. Produced water is often high in salts and boron and can contain minor amounts of organic compounds. These constituents can have negative impacts on potential beneficial use waters in human health. Produced water is either discharged to ponds or injected for disposal. Often during injection, produced water is injected back into the geologic formations from which it was produced. Oilfield produced water that is of high quality may be used for irrigation. Other oilfield wastes, such as drilling muds and solids generated during routine cleaning of equipment and tank bottoms, are also generated during oilfield activities. These wastes are disposed of at permitted waste facilities, such as landfills, or sometimes mixed with clean soil and used as road material within the oil fields. Currently, there are 23 staff assigned to oversee produced wastewater disposal and reuse, underground injection control practices, also known as UIC, and well stimulation practices, also known as SB4, to ensure the protection of water quality. All program staff are in the Fresno office because the vast majority of wells, wastewater production, and well stimulation activities occur in the southern San Joaquin Valley. The goal of the oilfield program is to properly regulate oilfield discharges and oversee monitoring activities to ensure the protection of surface water, groundwater, and human health. This includes issuing effective regulatory orders for discharges to land and reviewing proposed aquifer exemption applications, UIC permits, and SB4 related groundwater monitoring programs to ensure permitted activities are protective of water quality. Staff are split into 3 technical units, and when resources allow, staff from one unit may help with work typically assigned to another unit. In December of 2022, the board adopted the Racial Equity Resolution. In alignment with the priorities and goals of the Racial Equity Resolution, program staff will increase focus on oilfield sites that have the potential to affect MUN designated beneficial use waters and increase collaboration with sister agencies on priority sites that may be affecting disproportionately burdened communities. Program staff will create an inventory list to assess which sites are located near these communities and use the inventory list and associated Cal Enviro screen scores to identify sites for program work prioritization. Program staff will coordinate potential outreach meetings or workshops with communities near high priority sites to provide information regarding work being performed as part of the oilfield program. That concludes this video of the Central Valley Water Board's oilfield program. Thank you for listening.
Up to the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is black gold, Texas tea.
And I had to pick on Alex a little bit because his video just the right length, and I couldn't get over that sound clip that got attached to the end there.
Is that
But
like
again,
a little
I
Jed Clampett to wrap things up?
I really do. You know, I know I got a number of looks from the management team when I say, "You're asking us to do what now?" But I think that the you know, the production value on these is exceptional, and really, you know, done by just some iPhones out there, and you know, getting the word out there about what our programs does. Everybody kind of stepped up to the plate and did a fantastic job with this. So we've got one more. See, Adam disappeared because he's in this one. So. All right, so the CV salts one, I think we're done for that. Thanks again, Gene.
The Central Valley, vast by any measure, 450 miles long, 6 million acres of irrigated cropland, more than 200 cities and towns, and over 6.5 million people.
Equally vast are the water supply systems that supply the regional population and food production ecosystem. An elaborate network of more than 1,000 miles of rivers, streams, canals convey water from north to south and east to west.
Deep wells tap extensive underground reservoirs or aquifers to supplement surface water supplies. Human activity in the Central Valley over the last 200 years has led to substantial impacts to these valuable water sources.
Drinking water wells in some regions contaminated with nitrate. Salt levels so high that fruit and vegetable crops can't be grown in some regions.
Government and industry both recognize that changes needed to be made in how these valuable resources are being managed.
Equally important, creating solutions that preserve the agricultural-based economy of the Central Valley, an economy that supports families and produces food for California, the U.S., and the world.
Without Central Valley food production, the U.S. would be even more dependent on foreign imports to keep our country fed, and food prices would be even higher. In 2006, a collaborative stakeholder effort was launched that today is making significant progress in addressing these water quality issues.
This effort is called CV Salts, Central Valley Salinity Alternatives for Long-Term Sustainability.
The CV Salts mission, to develop and implement Central Valley-wide salt and nitrate management plans. Working around the table in this collaborative effort since 2006, and to this day, are leaders from agriculture, municipalities, industry, water supply, environmental justice communities, state and federal regulatory agencies, and the public.
CV Salts was a stakeholder-led effort. The Water Board didn't just come in and say it has to be a certain way or it has to be done in one way or another, but the stakeholders, the leaders in industry, the leaders in environmental justice, the different stakeholder groups throughout the valley came together and really built the program to address the needs of the valley.
A major milestone was reached in 2018 that addresses the salt and nitrate issues. That's when the Central Valley Water Board adopted a regulatory framework that put into law substantial requirements for entities that discharge salt and nitrate.
The nitrate requirements encompass 3 main goals. Reduce nitrate loading so that ongoing discharges from all controllable sources neither threaten to degrade high-quality waters nor cause or contribute to exceedances of water quality objectives. Ensure that groundwater users whose wells are impacted with nitrate are provided safe drinking water. Implement long-term managed restoration of impaired water bodies.
The goals of the program are broad. What we want to do is reduce the discharges and the sources of salt and nitrate that are in the valley to try and essentially ensure that our waters eventually will meet water quality standards and they're not causing and contributing to problems in the valley. That's the long-term goal. The long-term goal is to meet those objectives.
The highest priority of the program for CV Salts was the nitrate control program launched in 2020.
So CV Salts started looking at holistically at salts, but over time we realized that nitrates were a pressing issue. Nitrates, being a particular type of salt, have a certain health impact that we needed to address right away. So moving nitrates to the front of the consideration and making it an important part of the overall CV salts was key to addressing the pressing concerns of nitrates and their health impacts.
For the highest impacted areas, the program is operated by 6 regional management zones, each encompassing a major Central Valley groundwater aquifer with nitrate contamination. A limited number of nitrate dischargers are opting to address their localized impacts through an alternative regulatory option.
Following the CV salts model, the management zone organizations are collaborative efforts between agriculture, cities, food processors, and local entities.
In each of the 6 management zones, the regulated community formed nonprofit entities to raise funds and develop and implement plans required in the nitrate control program.
The management zones are a really unique concept. I think it's important to understand that in the years it took to develop them, there was a realization that this wasn't a solution that individuals could do. It's going to take a group effort to address nitrates and salt in the valley. And the management zone concept brings together all of those that have a role in that and puts an impetus on attacking it as a whole rather than individually, which would be really impossible to do in this scenario.
The organizations are virtually identical in function. They offer free well testing to residences who rely on private wells, and if problems are found, safe drinking water is provided free of charge to the occupants of those residences.
Since the Water Board approved the first management zone plans in May of 2021, more than 1,700 private wells have been tested for nitrate in the Central Valley.
A parallel domestic well effort under the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program tested 7,000 domestic wells, giving the Water Board a better understanding of nitrate impacts to private drinking water wells in heavily impacted areas. By May 2023, the Management Zone program found that more than 1,000 wells have nitrate contamination.
Residents were supplied with drinking water delivered to their homes free of charge.
Some management zones also constructed water fill stations in areas where nitrate contamination was known to exist. Others are in the planning stage for doing the same.
People may ask, why bottled water first? Well, it's definitely an interim fast solution to really help address an acute health issue. Nitrates can be very dangerous right off the bat, and so having a bottled water program helps alleviate that immediately while we work on longer-term solutions to bring back the groundwater quality.
The 6 management zones currently operating in the Central Valley use multiple communication strategies to publicize their programs and seek applicants. Social media, mailers, posting flyers in local businesses, and having displays at local events such as farmers markets, county fairs, and other public activities.
When someone signs up, management zones first check their address to confirm that the residence is not connected to a public water system that is already delivering safe water.
Once verified, the resident's contact information is sent to a local certified laboratory who then samples water from their well. The sample is then analyzed for nitrate, and if it exceeds state drinking water standards, the occupants are immediately notified. Management zone staff then arrange for free bottled water delivery by a commercial provider, typically in 5-gallon containers in monthly volumes appropriate for the household size of the residents.
As of May 2023, more than 150,000 gallons of clean drinking water have been delivered to residents of the Central Valley free of charge, a challenge that has become apparent in the 2 years since the program was launched. People are skeptical about any program that offers anything for free.
Still, word of mouth from neighbors and friends is proving to be one of the best ways to attract applicants. Expectations are that as the program matures, that skepticism will diminish.
Your little water system of your private domestic well serves your family's home use, your cooking, your bathing. Knowing the quality of that water is just as important for that individual as it is a city-run municipal water system. So management zones may have started as a concept in a room, but they're now real, and they need participation from the community to succeed.
With management zone entities now in operation for 2 years, long-term planning has begun. Each management zone is developing plans that outline localized, long-term solutions for the identified problem wells and neighborhoods.
The management zone implementation plans will involve local communities who have impacted wells. The management zones will work on drafts. There'll be public drafts of those plans that will be tailored and consider all of the impacts to local communities and what their needs are with respect to drinking water and sources of drinking water.
These long-term solutions could include consolidation with municipal drinking water utilities, in-home treatment systems, and novel water production systems currently being pilot tested.
Make no mistake, these long-term solutions will be expensive.
Connecting widely dispersed rural residences to existing drinking water systems will require expensive new infrastructure projects. And many of these rural residences have household incomes far below the national and statewide averages.
Still, planning has begun.
These plans have built-in milestones mandated by the regulations and will also involve local community groups and organizations as they are developed and implemented. Planning is also underway to address the accumulation of salts in the Central Valley.
A major route for salt transport is water pumped in from the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta into canals that carry irrigation water to millions of acres of cropland.
The University of California estimates that salt volumes imported to the San Joaquin Valley are equivalent to 40 train cars of salt per day. As recently as 2020, salt accumulation had resulted in 250,000 acres of cropland being taken out of production.
Another 1.5 million acres of cropland is salinity impaired. If salt remains unmanaged, direct economic impacts to the Central Valley could exceed $1.2 billion and $2.2 billion annually by 2030.
Those economic impacts result from reduced crop yield due to plant stress, or limiting crops such as fruits and vegetables from even being planted on salt-impacted farmland.
Because salts affect such a vast area of the Central Valley, the Water Board and stakeholders will first focus resources and efforts on those areas where the problems are most severe. This CV Salts initiative is called the Prioritization and Optimization Study that is now underway on a 10-year time schedule.
CV Salts, the industry stakeholders in CV Salts, and the program as a whole is tasked with doing this study. And industry is essentially tasked with financing this study over 10 years, roughly a $10 million study that will, again, basically look at salt movement in the valley, figure out where it's concentrating, where problems are, and try to implement and develop solutions that can be implemented to manage salt sustainably so that long time into the future we can have a thriving agricultural industry, we can have thriving drinking water sources.
As the initiative name implies, the areas already identified with salt problems need to be prioritized so any efforts undertaken can have the most beneficial impact.
The P&O study is going to be a valley-wide study that looks at salt movement throughout the whole Central Valley, looks at the different sources throughout the whole Central Valley, takes that information and really needs to come up with a plan, potential projects, and potential ways to manage salt sustainably in the Central Valley. Salt in the Central Valley currently is not managed sustainably.
And because there are limited resources available to pay for what are expected to be expensive solutions, projects need to be identified that will optimize use of any funds directed to the initiative. Now, 17 years since its inception, CV Salts has shown that a collaborative stakeholder process can produce viable plans and solutions to the salt and nitrate problems in the Central Valley.
Creating long-term solutions, be it for nitrate or salts, pose huge challenges in gaining local buy-in and designing and building infrastructure for local solutions. Still, those involved with CV Salts are addressing these challenges head-on. Driving their determination is knowing that their efforts can help ensure the Central Valley continues as a home for people and the food basket of the nation.
Now you can see why we saved that one for last. And I do want to thank Adam, who stepped up. I think I was in the Reading office that particular day when they were shooting, so sent him into harm's way in front of the camera to do those parts. So really hope that will be a tool. You know, there's still a lot of skepticism for the CV Salts program out there, even though it has a lot of successes. So this one was particularly important to be successful.
Yeah, I wanted to comment my first time serving on the board. I think it was in 2015 that the presentation was done by the former executive officer, Pamela. And at that time, it was about a 3-hour presentation, sleepy, long narrative. And it was after that I suggested, Pamela, can't we take this and put it on a video so people know who the managers are and get a feel for the program without the written narrative and presentation? So this is the result of it. I'm very happy. I mean, it's gotten even better. And thanks to Jean for being the one that's helping pull it all together. But the point being is that this is valuable information to the public. And most of the time, no one's going to read and sit through a long, drawn-out process. But when you can physically watch, know who the managers are, know the program, and see how it all comes together, it's a visual thing, and it makes much more sense. So I'm really pleased at the results of this and the improvements that have been made by the staff. And at any point in time when you want to know about it, instead of going to that page, clicking and reading through a whole bunch of stuff, you have a 3-5 minute narrative, with photos and everything that gives you a full understanding of the programs and what the Central Valley Water Board staff does. So thank you for listening and making this something that is meaningful to the public.
Yeah. I thank you, Denise, and the board who came before me for voted for this format to be implemented. I love it. When I was watching that, the word "wow" came to mind because it kind of summed it up what Denise alluded to, and we know what the concerns, the problems are, who's working toward resolving those, and who deserves the credit, and what we need to do going forward in terms of sustainability. I think all of that shows in videos like that. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more, and just want to applaud the team for such a great work. Thank you.
Hi. I'm very, very excited about these videos. When I dine with political consultants, they have no idea what we do here. And I am so looking forward to sharing these videos with them because it's like a small snippet of what we do here.
Yeah, I didn't see Carl highlighted in there well enough. That's the only comment I would have. I mean, he's the one who pushed that thing across the goal line. It was years of work to get it there. So I don't know if Carl's still plugged in here, but shout out to you, Carl. And then I was just surprised at the very end there, it wasn't like produced and directed by Spielberg or something, because that was amazing. Whoever shepherded that thing through, really well done. Thank you.
All right. I think with that, we can, unless there are additional comments, we can move towards the closed session item and then adjournment. While everybody's here, because I wouldn't necessarily recommend folks staying just for the adjournment, the next board meeting will be held in Reading, and that will have a tour of the Pitt River watershed on October 11th. And then we will move into a board meeting that may be 1 day, maybe 1.5 days, and will include a board member retreat session that will be talking about shared expectations for the board members and shared values, which is in part facilitated by the Office of Public Participation. They've been helping out quite a bit with that, and that was at Denise's initiative too. And so I think that will actually help us get some good language as we talk through some very controversial issues over the next couple of years. With that, I'll turn it to Jessica.
So in closed session, we'll be discussing the Premier Resource Management case, which is item E under the litigation.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And I think with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We'll actually come back after closed session and adjourn it formally.
Formally, okay.
But we won't have any other items afterwards.
I see a little stampede to the door there. So. Thanks, everybody.